Hello, people. Tonight we're doing another William Kepley production. William's idea was second chance beer, and he sends me these ideas. We're talking about beers that initially you tried and you didn't like, but then you gave it a second chance and you started to like it, or at least, let's say, tolerate it. So we have a few people that wanted to join, but they had such technical problems that it wasn't going to be feasible. Unfortunately, they had to be ejected. Nothing personal. It's just a technology feasibility situation. So we have William from North Carolina.
Hello.
We've got Michael from Canada, Ontario.
Hi.
And myself from Louisiana, and perhaps Gary. Gary's on a little, he's doing something right now. He didn't have the technical issues. He just had to take care of some business. So you might see people walking in the background. We may have some other people joining us as well. I'm going to tell you my experience real fast. And also people, William, he had some other good ideas, and you may see those coming up in the future. In 1986, it was around May of 86, might have been June. No, let me take about June 86, 31 years ago. I tried this. My father had a bunch of them in the fridge. I was 18 years old, and I was able to drink at the time. And I said, well, let's drink some beer, because I'm 18. I want to be a big adult, you know. And I tried this, a 12-ounce can. This is a 16-ounce can, and I just did not like it. There was something about Miller Lite. It had like a hollow taste or a hollow presentation, and I was thinking, what's wrong with this? I'm not enjoying this. It wasn't the experience I remembered from beer in the past. I remember being 2, 3, 4 years old, 5 years old, and my parents would let me sip the beer, and it tasted so good, the ice cold beer on the back porch. But this experience turned me off. I said, well, I guess I don't like beer, so I'm not going to mess with it anymore. And for 10 years, nearly 10 years, until February 96, I just did not drink beer. So I gave it a second chance, but not with this. At first, I gave a second chance to beer with some other products. And then I started doing what I call the long march through the beer brands. And I started to say, well, it's not so bad, I don't guess. And now I can tolerate it and even enjoy it if I work at bingo. And I bought it for a special purpose tonight. So Gary, you can unmute yourself and then tell us about your second chance beer, and then we'll go to everyone.
All right. So my second chance beer of choice tonight is Hurricane High Gravity Malt Liquor. All right. I remember the first time I had a Hurricane High Gravity, and I thought that I could handle a 40-ounce of it since I could handle a 40-ounce of Steel Reserve. And boy, was I surprised. This rocked me like a hurricane. It made me sick. It got me trashed. And the next day I woke up feeling horrible, and I said, I ain't going to fool with that again. So one day I got a 4-pack of these 16-ounce cans. I said, you know what, I'll give it another whirl. And I drank it just out of 16-ounce cans, didn't drink as much of it, and the same result did not happen yet again. Which I still find that weird, how I can drink a 42-ounce of Steel Reserve and all I get is just trash, not sick, but this rocks me like a hurricane. I just don't get it.
But you like it now, though, right?
Yes, I like it now. It's not my first choice in a high gravity malt liquor, but from time to time I'll drink Hurricane High Gravity. I'd rather prefer a Steel Reserve. That's probably my favorite high gravity malt liquor.
I would say certainly that Miller Lite is hardly my first choice in light beer, but I think it's okay. I just really honestly wasn't used to light beer. That's why I said it tasted or it felt hollow, right? You know,
right.
Something wrong with it. And so I never had to get used to craft beer. I never had to get used to regular beer, you know, your American adjunct lagers. But I had to get used to light beers because they tasted so incorrect. I guess that they seemed incorrect. Okay, so now we'll go to Michael, and then wait, I'm just going down the line, you see. So Michael and Ontario, what is your situation? And Gary, if you get any background noise, you're pretty good at monitoring that. You can just mute it yourself. I know you're pretty capable with that.
All right.
Okay, so Michael.
So yeah, my choice for tonight is Molson Export Ale. And I first tried this about 20 years ago, and I didn't like it at all. I can still remember the night. I was at a party. Someone offered it to me. I had a couple of sips, didn't really enjoy it, drank some more, didn't really enjoy it, finished the can to be polite, and decided I'm never going to touch this again. And about 20 years went by, and then several months ago, I was in a restaurant with a friend of mine and happened to see this on the menu and other beer menu. And I thought, you know, I haven't tried this in years and years and years. I'm going to order one. So I got it. It came in a bottle, not the tall boy can I have here. This is 473 milliliters. It came in a bottle. I tried it, and I really liked it. Several days later, I went out and I bought a 12-pack in cans, 355 milliliter cans, and slowly worked my way through it. And I really enjoyed it. Molson's, as most folks will know, is one of the large macro brewers here in Canada. This beer's been around since 1903. Some people call it a grandpa beer or a legacy beer. It tastes kind of grainy. There's a bit of sweetness to it. It tastes like beer. And it's just really enjoyable when it's icy cold. If you've, mowed the lawn or you're just sitting on the deck with friends, it's something you can enjoy. It's not a dynamic beer by any stretch of the means. But yeah, I got onto it again a few months ago and really enjoyed it the second time around. Now,
you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. Now, I had a little system failure, but you that's one of your regular items now, kind of in your rotation.
Yeah, it wouldn't always be in the fridge, but since I tried it a few months ago, I bought a couple of cases of it and kept it around.
Do you want to know why I never drank that beer?
Sure.
Because I can't get it. We can only get Molson Canadian in Louisiana, so I have no option to dislike it or give it a second chance, because I can't even give it a first chance.
You have to come visit, Jay.
I was in upstate New York last year, and I was very close to the Canadian border, but I didn't know you then, so I would have done it. I have a passport that is already 3 years old, and I should use it. I've only used it to go to Mexico.
Yes.
I'm going to read the online comments in a little bit, but I want to go through everyone here, and then we'll get, because a lot of people are making, or a good number of people are making comments about their second chance beers, so I don't want to leave them out. So now we got William in North Carolina, and he's the creator of this this hangout, the conceptual.
I'm in a creative period right now, I guess.
Yes, I believe that.
The beer I have tonight is one that not only am I glad I gave it a second chance, it's one that I more than tolerated. It actually became one of my favorite go-to beers. It's the Genesee Cream Ale. Hard to believe I've talked so much about this beer, but my first encounter with it was not very positive, which the whole experience was something I gained a whole lot in beer education about code dates, about the temperature to drink it. It's just a myriad of factors why I just didn't like this beer. But as I gained more knowledge about beer, I'm sure glad I tried it a second time. Actually, last fall I was on a road trip in Ohio. I was in Columbus, went into a beer store. They had a 12-pack of Genesee Cream Ale for $4.99. I took it up to the clerk and I said, "Is this a typo?" He said, "No, that's $4.99 for a 12-pack, and it was fresh.
It seems
less than a month old." I said, "Well, I'm going to give this another try." And I brought it home. I drank it at more of a regular temperature. I didn't put it in a chilled mug, and it completely transformed the beer's taste. I know, Michael, you mentioned a couple weeks ago, you cannot overestimate how much the temperature of a beer affects how you like it or dislike it. Beer is a volatile beverage, and it's meant to be drunk at a certain temperature. And the cream ale it lived up to what I had read about it beforehand, because I'd read before that how highly touted this was, like for just a regular beer. And when I drank it again, it lived up to what I originally anticipated it would be. It has the flavor of an ale with the smoothness of a lager. Now, it's not the best beer in the world. It's not a crap, but for a daily go-to beer at a rock bottom price, it's in my fridge about all the time now.
I'd buy it, but I can't get it. I noticed they don't make the stubby bottles anymore. They went back to the long necks, right?
Right. The ones I got in Ohio were in the cans, a 12-pack. And then I was in Kentucky in April. No, excuse me, Pennsylvania. And I got a 24-pack of the long neck bottles for $13 in one of their beer warehouses. And I've just about finished off that 24-pack now. And I can get it locally in 24-ounce cans and 12-ounce cans, 12-packs. And when I finish this, I'll be going out and getting another. But it just, like I said, I was relatively young in my beer education at the time I tried it first, and it wasn't out of date just a little bit. It was Methuselah out of date. It was way out.
So that's an aggravating factor in your initial bad experience. And
that became my mission within to learn to read these beer codes. And I think you'll attest to the fact that I did a pretty good job of it since then, often to the point of being almost obsessive about it.
Right.
Too far. But I wanted to get the freshest product as possible. And I thought, beer's like, it's milk, it's a perishable item. I don't have to worry about that. But when I found out how old this beer was, I said, I need to learn this, because nobody's going to do it for me.
Yeah, and those best.
You have to be proactive about things if you want it to be right in almost any aspect of life. And then learning about, growing up, it was always ice cold beer was the term, the frosted mug and, blah, blah, blah. And I ditched the frosted mug. I drink it now. I don't use chilled frosted mugs anymore. And I drink it at a chilled cold temperature, but not ice cold, that you're going to have fear of ice crystals coming out, because it mutes a lot of the flavor. And that this cream ale just tastes like just a generic adjunct lager when I drank it the first time. Yeah. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't off-putting, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And that's partly my fault. If I had false, expectations based on my drinking experience, it was too cold. It was out of date. So I'm sure glad I gave it a second chance, because it's been well worthwhile for me.
And that's an interesting thing you're saying about you can't rely on a grocery store or a beer outlet to check dates. That is just not going to happen. They're not going to do it. I mean, there may be a handful that will, but in a practical sense, it's not going to happen. They don't have time to go check the bottom of every can and bottle. A lot of the companies don't even put dates, a lot of the craft beer. But so you got to be, you as the consumer, just check the dang dates. And those dates are not put on there for no reason, are they? It's not just marketing. They know that the beer is optimum within that range.
Right. So I learned very valuable lessons around this beer. It's more than just the one beer I tried and didn't like it first. It helped me to as far as gain a lot of just general beer knowledge, because I didn't drink beer of any type for many years. Yeah. But once I got into it, I've been sort of gung ho about it.
So it was sort of like a training.
It was I guess you could say this is like a watershed moment in my young beer history. Everything that surrounded this beer. And like I said, I'm sure glad I gave it. I went in that store in Ohio, $12.99 for $4.99 for a 12-pack.
Well,
that is dirt cheap.
I remember back in 1996, and I want to talk to Gary in a minute, because I have something to say about that Hurricane High Gravity 8.1. I remember when I started drinking beer in 1996, you could get 12 packs of Schaefer. That's one I remember standing out. 12 packs of Schaefer for $3.99. So I used to buy a lot of Schaefer because you could get the 12 packs for $3.99 and you could get the 24-pack suitcase. You know what I'm talking about? They called it the Weekender. That was the name of it, the Weekender, and it was $7.98. $7.98 a 24-pack. Well, I thought, even though money has lost value in 21 years, it's not that prices go up. It's that money loses value, but we don't want to get into fiat money and all that. But even then, in '96, I thought $3.99 a 12-pack was a great deal. But then that disappeared after some time. But it was a good 3 or 4 years where you could get those suitcases, also of natural ice, for $7.98, and then it crept up to $9.99. Well, we know where it stands now. I'm going to read some of the online comments, and then I want to talk to Gary about something. JKOG, wait, that's not where it starts. Maxwell says, hello, Ronald. Hello, Maxwell. In the basement said he's the second guy on here. He could be on here, you know what I mean, like part of it, if he wanted to join. Schlitz Red Bull, dated September 11, 2017. Are you drinking that, or are you saying that was a second chance beer? Because that would be a brand new beer at that date. Raining on Your Parade says, Duvel, had to have it a few times before I fell in love. Huh, that's interesting. I loved it the first time, but I was sort of deep into the craft beer by that time. John and Neil said, Ron, can you resend me the invite? I'm having trouble getting back on. Yeah, John, we'll try that in a little while, but your technological faculties, let's call it, was so inadequate that I could see that it was not going to be feasible. Same thing with the other guy. Nothing personal. It just wasn't going to happen. It would have made the hangout virtually worthless. But I understand that there's some technical things that people run into. You might want to get some good equipment. But we'll try to bring you back in a little bit. JKOG says, drink only Old English from Canada because they got glass. Not exactly true. Now, let me tell you why. You can get 18-ounce bottles of Old English here, glass bottles, 18-ounce. Okay, so you can get glass Old English in America. Not to mention you can get 22-ounce glass bottles, and perhaps even 12-ounce in some isolated locations, but definitely 18-ounce all day, every day. In the Basement said my second chance beer was Guinness Stout. Wow, that's interesting. I find that interesting that you didn't like Guinness at first. Okay. Oh, JKOG said I'm drinking a Red Bull, Schlitz Red Bull. Okay. Black Toe Tavern says every trip to Quebec or Ontario, I try to bring back a rack of Carling Black Label, Molson Dry, Laurentide, not sure if it's still available, Labatt 50. You guys have some decent macros up north. Oh boy, I look on those websites for the Canadian beers, it's a whole different world. I would go to Canada and just spend thousands of dollars on regular beer, like regular beer. Okay, Eric Alliance fan says, hi Ron, having a Kona Big Wave Golden Ale. Why aren't you on this hangout, Eric Alliance fan? That's what I'm saying. But enjoy that Kona Big Wave. Maxwell says, Ronald, what's your favorite beer? Can't say, because I have about 100 or 200 or 300 favorite beers. How many glasses can you drink? I don't know. I never tested that. Never did that test. Daryl E says, cheers, y'all. My second chance beer is Tecate. What? 15 years ago, I tried it, and I didn't like it. Last year, I gave it a second chance, and now it's a summertime favorite of mine. Wow. In the Basement says, congratulations on the 7,000 subs. Hey, thanks. I appreciate that. And do you know that I never hired a subcontractor, you know what I mean, to pull a crowd? I know some people have 25, 30,000 subs, but some of those people have, well, anyway. All right. HQ Video Galore said he retracted 3 messages. I wish I could retract everything I've said online in the past. Everything that I wish I could retract, I mean. John O'Neill says, Ron, it says I'm blocked. Can you re-invite me? Yes, I plan to do that, but not at this exact moment. Max Walt says, parentheses, whatever that means. Eric Alliance fan is eating a steak, laugh out loud. You shouldn't laugh out loud at that. Blacktail Tavern says, my favorite beer is a free beer. If you had a free camo, you wouldn't stand by that statement. In the Basement says, good you didn't sell out to get subs. No, I did not. I said that right at the get-go. I had noticed that some people back in 2011 were paying those services to pull a crowd. One thing I noticed about the people that pull a big sub crowd, if you look at their view rate, it's not really that high. In other words, they have a lot of subs, but maybe 90% of those people aren't watching. And that's not that uncommon, even with people that self-sub. In other words, they subscribe on their own volition. Bart Robinson says, has it started? Not seen anything. It's been on for 21 minutes, Bart. Okay, now, back to the hangout. Gary, you ready? Unmute, Gary.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. First, let me say this. This thing still tastes hollow.
All right.
But now I can drink a whole can without dumping it out, which is what I did in 1986. Gary, that beer that you're drinking is sort of like a second chance beer in reverse. I used to drink it regularly, and now I don't because I don't like it anymore. And that's.
I tried a Hurricane based on the 81 score it got on Beer Advocate by the Bros. And I like it. I think it's one of the smoother of the high gravity ones. And that's probably my pick in that 8% range would be the Hurricane.
Let me tell Gary why, real fast, because I've talked too much. It's not because I think it's a poorly made product. I think it's a very well made product. I think they do a really good job with it. And for a high gravity lager, adjunct lager, it's virtually flawless. But here's the problem. It's got too much body. It's too sweet and chewy, and the alcohol is just too high for my taste. But that is not a reflection on the product. That's a reflection on me.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all have personal tastes. I tried sweet onions. I did not like sweet onions. They were too sweet. They didn't have enough bite. So now I'm back to yellow onions. They have a lot of bite. They add a lot of character to the food. See what I mean? No knock against sweet onions. Millions of people a day use sweet onions. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I do agree with you to a certain extent. It is really sweet, but I don't think it's overcloyingly or sickly sweet. But in terms of flavor and body, yes, it's got a lot of body and a lot of flavor. If all you drink is light beer and you drink something like this, oh boy, you are in for the shock of your life. But the alcohol, it is smooth, and it has more of the alcohol burn that I like as compared to that pink bubblegummy sweetness that you see in like the Colt 45 High Gravity, the Old English High Gravity, the Ice House Edge, and a few other various high gravity lagers. I think this one and Steel Reserve are the only ones that have the alcohol burn. The rest are just pink bubblegummy sweetness with the alcohol.
Yeah. I think my main thing is that my preference tends to fall within that 4.5 to 5.9% range. Once you get to 6, once you hit that 6.0 area in my booklet, it's a situation of diminishing returns for the adjunct. I'm not talking about Doppelbox like a Birra Moretti La Rosa, but that's a super, it's a much more expensive product.
Right.
So I have this little idea in my head right now. I've been having this envie. Envie is like a French term for a craving.
Right.
For Michelob Amber Box. So I'm going to work on a little project there. Anybody's welcome to join me. Now, so that's all I wanted to ask you. Now I want to turn the floor over to William and Michael, and then I'm going to try to invite our friend John back in. He was having such disastrous technical issues. So what do y'all think? Anything to say? Because I've been blabbing my mouth.
This is cold chilled. I just poured it out of the bottle, and this is at its maximum flavor here. For it's got a little bit of, it's 5.1% alcohol. It's got decent body for a beer of its style. You can taste that Genesee uses grits as their adjunct, and you can taste the grit aspect, the note in this, and the way they ferment this, it mitigates some of the aleness, the citrusy part, but you still get a little of that coming through, and you get a real, like the smoothness of like a Budweiser or a Coors or Miller High Life, and it's just enough different for a regular beer drinker like myself that it's sort of it's very, very appealing. And
I want to ask you a question about that when you finish talking.
Okay, I'm finished now.
I was doing a hangout with a person I used to do hangouts with, but that's a whole nother story. Maria Devon, the girl next door, and we were doing Genesee Cream Ale. We were like doing an examination of it together, and I was talking about how it had a strange, to me, a strange Duncan Hines cream cheese cake frosting note to it. And then she said, yeah, I agree with that. It's hard to pin down in the aroma and the taste as it works together. And she agreed with that. So I don't know if you picked that up.
It does have an aroma that no beer that I've ever drank has. There is a uniqueness about the aroma. And I can see, you know, it might be the power of suggestion, but I can see what you're saying. There's a sweetness. To me, it's hard to describe, but you take one whiff of this, and it's nothing like any beer I've tried before. It may have characteristics of a lager, but the aroma is certainly different. And the taste is too. As I say, if you drink it, you know, it's not ice cold that when your taste buds hit, you know, it just like freezes it. But this is very flavorful. It is now, and at 5.1%, it's got a pretty good amount of flavor, actually. So, like I said, for the regular beer drinker that just wants a little, you know, a little beer on it as an aside, I think this is a very good choice, and the price, you can't go wrong. It's I think it would be on my bang for the beer buck list also.
Oh yeah, another idea. Hey, look, I agree with you. I love Genesee Cream Ale, and even though I think it does have a few little oddity, wanky things going with it, and I got knocked off for a second while you were telling me that, but you didn't pick up that weird cream cheese thing though, I gather.
But there is something unique about it in the aroma, and I can see that, you know, that wouldn't be my first notion, but I can see how you say that, really. You know, like I said, it might be the power of suggestion, but there is something different. It's just different in the aroma. It's not that dank, musky, grainy that you get with a lot of the adjunct lagers, and yet it's not the hoppy, citrusy you get from a craft beer. It is unique, and I think that comes from the brewing process. You know, the warm fermentation, using the ale yeast. There's just something different about it. It's a hybrid, and it confuses many people. Just the name cream ale, they think it's got cream in it. There's a lot of misconceptions about this beer floating on the internet, but it does have that creamy head and the creamy mouthfeel, which seems to be a sort of a signature trademark of a lot of the Genesee beers, which I like. That creaminess adds to me the body and the texture of it. It makes it more satisfying. You drink one of these, I mean, it's pretty filling. It's 153 calories, like I say, 5.1% alcohol, pretty good substance. So, and for the regular beer drinker to come, you know, like the lawnmower beer, sitting at the lake, fishing out on the lake. I mean, it's perfect for that.
You know, Gary. Okay, yeah. You know what's the Genesee beer that I dislike the most, or have the least enthusiasm for, is
the regular beer.
Yeah, the regular Genesee seems so dull. Well, I guess Genesee Light too. But I was drinking Genesee. Well, I was in Maryland. I was on US Highway 1 in Maryland, southbound, and I stopped at this liquor store, and I bought some Genesee. Yeah, I think it was you, Gary. Anyway, I was driving southbound US Highway 1 in Maryland, north of Baltimore, in a little hilly area, and I stopped at a liquor store, and I bought some Genesee beer, regular can, 6-pack, and it was hot. I had my windows down in my car, and I just it wasn't Louisiana hot, but it was, you know, it was still hot. And I bought some and I poured it and drank it. And it tasted really good there because it was in the heat, you know. But I got John's frantically trying to contact me. Okay, John, I'm gonna, oh no, video call, you can't do that. You got to join our hangout. Let me, he seems confused about the technology. But when I got home and I drank some later, right, like out the fridge and in a glass, it seemed like dull as dishwater. I said, nah, this Genesee beer is just dull. Now, when I drank it out the bottle in 1997 in Hop Bottom, Pennsylvania, with a roasted chicken dinner with potatoes and some salad or some kind of vegetables, oh, it was just ideal. So it's funny how these beers can present themselves different in a certain context, but just drinking it and thinking on it, drinking it and thinking on it, it didn't have much character. I'm talking about
4.5%, it's on the lower scale of the adjunct lagers. To me, when I drank it the first time, I thought of Bush or a Rolling Rock, something with not a lot of flavor,
Kind of
very light beer, a light. And these are, if you look at the ads for these adjunct lagers, they are, as I've always said, they are the original light beers. If you look at ads from the 50s, they refer to these as light beers.
Correct. So they took light.
Sometimes people's, you know, they're reminiscing about these beers is not actually, I think, what, you know, maybe it's wishful thinking or whatever, but these are the original light beers. And
you're right. And it's sort of like a context, right? And I was talking about that before, about drinking it. In the 1950s, like you said, Schlitz, Schaefer, Pabst, they were called light beers. So what Miller came out with in 1975 was really an ultralight by that standard. And what we get in today's world with ultralights like Michelob Ultra is virtually water, really.
And many times people nowadays, if you say, I'm going to drink a Coors, they're assuming you're drinking a Coors Light. That's it's almost co-opted the name of Coors.
Yeah, I agree.
Beer is really not that popular in my area.
You're right.
But that, I mean, if you go to a convenience store, it's like, could you get me a fresh Coors beer? They'll bring you a Coors Light. They said, we got it right here. Let me check. I said, no. I said, no. I want the banquet beer. I don't want this. But that shows you the power of advertising. And once it gets in, you know, ingrained in somebody, you know, it's almost like I said, it's almost co-opted the name Coors.
Yeah, and if you go to a restaurant and ask for a Coors banquet, I guarantee you they're going to bring you a Coors Light 99 out of 100 times. Or they'll be confused by what you mean. What do you mean a Coors banquet? Now, John and Neil, we're going to try it again because I know you had some issues.
Can you guys hear me okay now?
Sure can.
Okay. Man, you spend money on good technology and then it doesn't work. Chromebook, which is supposed to be really good for Google Hangouts, and it didn't work, so I'm back to using my phone.
Oh. Well,
so
tell us
anyway.
what your second chance beer is. See if it'll hold up.
My second chance beer is America.
Oh.
Wait a second. Oh, no, Budweiser. So
comical.
So yeah, I had my second chance beer is Budweiser. I didn't like it at first. I think drinking American adjunct lagers that were made with corn. When I tried Budweiser, it was just kind of off-putting to me. So I went back to the Coors Banquet and Miller High Life. And then I tried the Asahi Super Dry, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I know it's made with rice. So I decided to try Budweiser again, and I really enjoyed it and been drinking it ever since.
So but if you had to pick one, like what is your main second chance beer, which one would you?
Budweiser for sure.
I think you went black.
I was just saying that the Asahi Super Dry kind of got me back into the rice adjunct. But yeah, definitely Budweiser.
When you drank Budweiser for the first time, was you aware that it uses rice as an adjunct, not corn?
Actually, I don't think I was. I was pretty young when I tried it. The first time I was drinking, Coors Banquet was my go-to back then, and I tried Budweiser, and I didn't care for it at all. Then I later found out that it was made with rice.
Some people, sometimes they'll taste the corn, but it's the DMS from the malts, not the corn actually, because if you read on the Moosehead website, most of these adjunct corns are flavorless and odorless. Right. They're meant to be a filler in the beer, not as a flavor.
Right. They're not actually supposed to impart any flavor to the beer, but
people are sort of, it's almost like they get ingrained. It's almost like they're reading from a script. Well, it's got corn, it's got this, I'm tasting this. Actually, you might not be tasting the corn.
Well, maybe not. I just attributed my dislike for it at first to the rice, because once I found out that it was made with rice, I just assumed that was probably the determining factor as to why I didn't like it at first, because all the other beers that I had up to that point had been made with corn.
Hey, John, you know what I think? You know what I think might have been throwing you off with Budweiser? I think it could have been an issue with the yeast. They use some there's something about the Budweiser yeast that just really affects people in a negative way. And
some people with Budweiser, they get that sort of spike in the brain.
Yeah, I call it the ice pick to the forehead.
Yeah.
It is unique. There's aspects about Budweiser.
It's definitely a very unique beer. I've taste test and stuff, just experimenting around and seeing if I could tell beers apart with like Miller High Life, Genuine Draft, Coors Banquet, your typical American adjunct lagers. But with Budweiser, I've always found that I can tell the Budweiser apart from the other beers. It has it has a very different flavor.
To it.
Say that again?
I said I find there's a distinction to Budweiser that when you compare it to other adjuncts, or American lagers rather, that you really do notice.
Oh yeah, Budweiser. There's nothing really else, anything like it. There's beers that are similar to it, but to try to have a copycat of Budweiser, it can't be done.
No.
And the same way with Pabst Blue Ribbon, I find, like, if you put it in a lineup with other beers, I think I could pick it out every single time.
And if you drink these adjuncts at the proper temperature, cold but not ice cold, they do begin to develop some characteristics about themselves. And I know I picked up a banana note in a Coors Banquet beer, and I went on the website, and there it was listed. And I said, well, I think my palate is beginning to sharpen somewhat. And then when I got the hams, I was picking up a little grassy lemony note in it, but if you drink these like at the optimum temperature, they begin to show some characteristics of their own. Where ice cold, an adjunct lager is going to be an adjunct lager. It's going to be like pretty much of a generic flavor. It will be beery tasting, and it will be quite refreshing, which might be all you're looking for if you just mowed the yard in 95-degree heat, But if you ramp that temperature down a little bit, they do begin to develop some unique characteristics of their own. I learned that myself because last summer I drank beers too cold. I look back now, I did. I fell into that trap and then wondered why they all taste the same.
If you watch,
I was kept waiting. This is going to be the one that I'm going to really like. And I said, well, this one tastes a whole lot like the last one. And I kept going through that cycle.
If you watch the first 2 years of my video reviews, you'll see that many times I had the beers too cold. But I didn't understand. I was raised, what do we hear our whole lives?
Ice cold beer.
So what do? I mean, it's like this thing about eating pizza hot. Everybody knows you shouldn't eat a hot pizza. I'm just joking. I'm kidding about that. I'm just joking about that. But yeah, beer, you want it cold, but the ice cold is a mistake. And I agree with you about the brewer's syrup and the rice adjunct. When people, and they'll tell you this on the big websites like Moosehead, if you're tasting something, you're not tasting the brewer's syrup because it's odorless and tasteless. So how are you going to taste it? You're tasting a flaw in the brewing process with the barley malt and the hop and the yeast some kind of way. Because how are you going to taste something that has no flavor? So if you claim that you can taste a flavorless substance, you need to be in a what do you call those shows? A side show where you're like the bearded lady or something, because you've done something no one else can do.
That's why I've been always cautious about saying stuff like when it's corn. You know, it's because you know sometimes things are not what they seem to be.
Now, when I drank that bourbon this morning, not a lot of it, people, for those who think that my hobby is a life problem, but it's a hobby. I was thinking about that. I was saying, this is such a strong corn flavor. I didn't really like the flavor. It was so strong in the corn. Well, yeah, I was tasting corn there. You know why? That Old Crow 1977 bourbon is not made with brewer's syrup. It's made with actual corn. At least 51.
It's probably 75% at least corn.
So it would only be natural that it would have a unusually, and that's the reason a lot of people don't like bourbon. It has that strong corn flavor, which does not appeal to people. Well, I can understand that, but you can taste something that has flavor. Corn itself has flavor, but this brewer's syrup, which you cannot go to your grocery store and buy, it is a wholesale item. I guess a home brewer might be able to get it at a brewer's supply store. It does not have flavor. Now, you brought up Budweiser, John. Well, and I invited David to come back. You know, David Solorzano. I invited him to come back. I noticed he might have gotten angry or whatever. I wanted him to be on here. He was looking forward to it before we went on air. But it was totally unworkable what we were dealing with. You guys saw that. That was not going to work. So you're welcome to come back, David. So come on back. You talked about Budweiser. I had this little idea. I don't know how y'all feel about this, but you can let me know. Because I've been writing this little schedule book out for these hangouts. And next week, we've got another William Kepley production. It's called the Legacy Beer Hall of Fame. But then on July 26th, I'll let my own ideas intrude again in my own channel. Just kidding. How about if we examine Budweiser? Just an idea.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to examine Budweiser.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Yeah, I'm definitely in for that.
How about you, David? Jump on here and let us know. All right. Now, let's look at the lineup down the road here. This is all provisional. It's not, I wrote it in pencil. I didn't write it in ink. August 2nd, Hams. But Michael can't get it. I don't feel comfortable doing beers that our regular people can't get, though. I think the world could survive if we don't look at Hams, but it sure would be nice to do it. But if we...
It just started becoming available in my area like within the last month. I hadn't been able to get it until recently.
Yeah, it's been here about three months, yeah.
Making a comeback.
Where are you again? You're in
Columbus, Georgia.
Oh yeah, right, Georgia, right, yeah.
But I have to drive to Phoenix City to get it, Alabama. Phoenix City, Alabama,
right.
to get
You're
it.
telling me that, right? Yeah. I don't want you to go. Maybe we better scrap Hams for now. Well, then I got some more William Kepley ideas. I don't know where he comes up with these ideas. Okay, August 9th, the Ice Beer Power Trio. All right, the Ice Beer Power Trio, okay. And then August 16th, Bang for the Buck, the best bang for the buck beer. Oh man, I could think of so many things for that. And then he sent me a bunch of ideas today that I was looking through, so I can think of some good bang for the bucks, and I can think of a lot of wasted money, you know, like this Miller Lite. Look, I'm going to say this. If I work at Bingo, I'll drink it because it's free. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I would never buy this beer.
You talk about having a hole in the middle flavor. A Miller Lite is like music without the mid-range.
It's hollow.
It is. It's hollow. That's just, you know, if I try to drink a light beer, it's just like, let's get this over with. It's just an exercise in putting it to your mouth and swallowing. That's pretty much it. But I just can't get past the lack of flavor. You know, that's just the style of it. And I'm not knocking the style. I just don't like it.
Yeah, it was almost a thoroughly unpleasant experience. Not to say that it tasted bad. No,
it's hard to be bad when there's no flavor to begin with.
Right.
Kind of like lunch bag letdown.
Yeah, you're right, Michael. Now, there's some light beers that actually literally taste bad. They're even more remarkable than Miller Lite because they're taking something that is almost characterless and they're adding character to it, but a bad character, like Rockdale Light.
And there are some that will say that it's difficult to brew a good light beer because there's nothing to mask the imperfections about it.
Right.
If it's something bad in there, it's gonna stick out like a sore thumb. So you know, you have to respect the crafts. You know, they brew these beers. I just don't particularly like that style.
Right. This is a flawless item, really.
But it's not my life mission to go out, you know, saying they're crap. You know, it's almost like Pavlov's dog. You know, I don't care if people like light beers. More power to them. I don't feel like I have to put them down every time that it's mentioned in the same breath as something else.
I think that goes back to what we talk about. You know, it's all about the context of it.
Right. People have a problem with grasping the concept of context, right?
Exactly.
I know there's oftentimes statements saying, we all know Budweiser's crap. Well, you know, opinion becomes fact.
I was looking online some of the reviews for this, and people were just ripping it. And there's nothing wrong with this beer. It's been around since 1903. And yet you read some of the reviews, and they're just outrageous.
Yep, that's a Rate Beer and Beer Advocate for you.
I would love to try that export ale, but I can imagine the reviews. They're so detached from reality that they're comical. It's incredible, you know, when you read these reviews. People will tell me, why do you even talk about Rate Beer and Beer Advocate on your channel? You're part of the problem. I'm not part of the problem because the whole beer thing to me is just enjoyment. So when I read those ridiculous, outlandish, and totally beyond the pale reviews, they're fun to read because they show that the person making the statement is either a fool, but more likely they're not a fool. They're just trying to get they're trying to build what we call street credibility in the beer drinking community, right? By getting the cheap laughs. Now, David, we're sorry that this problem happened, but you're going to tell us about your second chance. So go ahead, Thomas.
All right. Just close the YouTube video. Heads up. Anyways, well, so I was, you know, most likely underage when I drank Heineken at a party and whatnot.
No.
And I hated the beer, you know. I hated the beer. You know, I started drinking just Bud Light for a year or so when I turned 21, and that's all I drank religiously. Bud Light, watered down beer, because I could chug that like nothing.
Lots of people around your age do that, so that's nothing out of the ordinary. But
right. So, and then once I started, and then I was broke one day, and I had to go to the liquor store, and what did I buy? I bought a Pabst Blue Ribbon, and that was a little bit more fuller beer, and I just fell in love with it because, you know, first of all, I like drinking, and when I taste this full, like, kind of in your mouth, like, ooh, that, like, kind of bite, you know?
Yeah.
It kind of, you just kind of, like, love every sip just more than the Bud Light when I started off, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So when I first started off like that, and then I was like, oh, you know, I want to try all these different other beers at the liquor store. And so I was asking the guy at the liquor store, it's like, what do you guys have that, you know, is like, you know, tasty, a full beer? And well, he was like, oh, try Hollandia, kind of the poor man's Heineken.
Right.
Yeah, so and so I bought Hollandia and I loved it. And I just wanted to try every beer at the liquor store, you know, I just wanted to try everything. Cause now I'm all about taste. And first I hated Heineken because, you know, I couldn't chug it, you know, without being like, oh, what's all this taste and whatnot. But now that, you know, like kind of bitterness, I don't know what's, you know, I'm not an expert myself, but, you know, I'm a young 20-year-old drinking, enjoying the taste of Heineken now compared to, like, you know, when I was younger. And, you know, just, I guess.
I will say this about Pabst Blue Ribbon. There's only one thing about Pabst Blue Ribbon that turns me away from it. Whenever it goes to the end of the taste, it takes on like a really sour, grainy taste. And to me, that throws me off. If it didn't have that, I would drink it more. But I mean,
I think that's one of the artificial flavors. That's what makes it cheap.
No, I think I can explain that by referencing a 1980 article in the National Geographic magazine about. There was an article about Milwaukee, but they went into pretty deep detail about Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. And the author of the article was asking the brewmaster why did Pabst have a somewhat unusual flavor, and then he told him why, and he said it has something to do with the yeast. It's a fascinating article, but the brewmaster said, well, there's a reason for that. So yeah, Pabst Blue Ribbon is sort of like what do you say, an iconic beer now for the last 17 years because of the onset of the hipster movement and the desire the desire to have flavor without putting out much money.
Yeah.
And that's like Williams talking about the Hall of Fame, the Legacy Beer Hall of Fame. Pabst Blue Ribbon probably would have to be in the Legacy Beer Hall of Fame because you go to all these bars around the United States and they have huge draft glasses of Pabst Blue Ribbon for $2. And I don't think millions of people a day are drinking it because they hate it, you know. And I watched one beer reviewer. He's always saying, I'm not going to name him because he'll immediately send me a message, even though he says he doesn't watch my videos. But he says, "Oh, I'm drinking all these what we would call legacy beers or cheap beers, whatever." He says, "Oh, it's not a good product. Let's get that straight. This is not a good product." And I'm thinking, how could you make that definitive statement that it's not a good product? Or he says it's not a quality product. Well, of course it's not a $10 bottle, you know, but I don't see how you could say that something like Budweiser is not a quality product. Those kind of comments just fascinate me. They don't make me angry. They just fascinate me. You know, but he's drinking them doing the videos, you know, it's strange. I don't know how to get my head around that. It's kind of odd to me.
I know with Pabst, like it's consistent, and all these legacy beers, they're consistent. They're they're consistently good products. So how people attack them, I don't understand it, especially when you look at the sales for them.
I think Pabst has a little bit of a wine note in it. With some
I would agree.
Steve has a slight sourness in the taste.
Yeah, I think I can agree.
And that might be attributed to the yeast, the strain they use, but it does have a little bit, you know, of that going for it. And yeah, PBR would be a first-year induction in the Hall of Fame. No question about it. They're a no-brainer.
Yes, sir. Hell yeah, number one.
The comeback they made, their overall impact on beer. Yeah, they're going in the first year.
It's the millennials.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. It's I didn't want to say anything because I thought somebody might go get but it's the Carlsberger yeast. They use some Carlsberger yeast. But okay, now I'm gonna read a few comments. Kyle, and I've been hearing from Kyle for years. Thanks for watching. I appreciate your support, Kyle. He says Samuel Adams Boston Lager. I hated it at first, but now it's one of my favorites. You're not the only one. Black Toe Tavern says my second chance is Ballantine. Thought it had a sour taste
Good one.
when I first tried it. Not sure Pabst changed the formula. I don't think Pabst has changed the formula. I've seen people say that, but they've never been able to provide a single shred of documentation to back up that statement. Great taste, budget, price. Bart Robinson says Ballantine is my absolute favorite go-to beer. I didn't need a second chance for me. But yes, they've changed the formula. I heard that about Ballantine, but I haven't heard any real actual definitive thing to back that up either. Black Toe Tavern said, I noticed it's in brown bottles now. Right. Well, that was just a good idea. Art says, yeah, protecting from the light. I do miss the green bottle. Well, the green bottle was what it was famous for, but that lets that light in and it really messes. What is the best malt liquor? You know, that's another hangout. A bar SJ says PBR. PBR. He said it twice. PBR. Well, look, second chance beer is an interesting topic. I'm glad we got to talk about it. We've been going on for nearly an hour. I'm sorry that some of y'all got bounced because of the technical problems, but I'm glad you were able to correct it and hang out with us because I was worried. I said they're going to think I don't like them or something like that. But no, it was nothing like that. You know.
Hey man, it's just life. Just life.
Right, but it's not the part of life we want. You know, we want it to go smooth. You know, no trouble.
Yeah.
But then I'm talking and look, I had 2 hangouts where I was going through Google Chrome and I sounded like.
Crows in the background.
Right, I can't say too much, you know. But anyway, I'm excited about these other topics that are coming up. So next week, people, God willing, we're going to do Legacy Beer Hall of Fame, and you just know what beer I'm going to bring on.
Magnum?
Magnum. No, not Magnum.
PBR.
Gary.
What?
Why must you?
He cheated. He cheated.
All right. Any last comments?
No, I just have a sixth sense. I know how to read minds.
I think your beer will be one beer that someone didn't like their first chance.
I always have PBR in the fridge, but I'll pick a Canadian beer for next.
Hey, I like that guy. I like you. Always have PBR. Always. It's
next week I'll pick a Canadian one for my Legacy Beer Hall of Fame.
Hey Michael, you jogged my memory. You know what? When I first tried Labatt Blue, I didn't like it, but then I learned to like it a lot. True story. So I think I might show up here next week with a Path Blue ribbon, but I could think of a bunch of others that I could surprise you with in my Hall of Fame. I don't know how many things can go in a Hall of Fame. Apparently, all kind of things can go in a Hall of Fame. You can put rock music in a Hall of Fame, and you can put non-rock music in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It doesn't even have to be rock music to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So you see, we can put beers in the Hall of Fame that aren't even worthy, but that would be silly. Any last comments? Finish it up. We got 1 minute left.
I think it's nice that some of the people got to get a second chance on the second chance night to re-enter the hangout. So there's nothing in the air tonight.
I do have one more comment.
Something in the air tonight, as Phil Collins might say.
That's right, with the huge boom boom drum sound.
To what William had said earlier about beer drinking temperatures, I find these high gravity lagers, they're good cold, but you don't want them ice cold. I find about 34 degrees about the optimal temperature. And I find that really most any beer, any kind of lager beer is really best served about 34 degrees. You really don't want them to warm up above like 40 degrees because then sometimes they can get pretty disgusting.
What's the alcohol? ABV, what's the ABV on that Hurricane?
This Hurricane is 8.1.
No, dude, come on. That's too high to be cold. It needs to be ice cold.
I agree with David. And if I'm drinking a high gravity lager, which is rare, I'm gonna just I'm gonna bring it to the Antarctic, man.
Well, not all these high gravity lagers taste bad, and they have off-putting flavors. I at least want to taste the beer I'm drinking. I don't want it too cold where I can't taste it.
I think many will start off drinking ice cold because they know that as they warm, some of these can sort of go into the ditch.
Yeah.
But if you're drinking it like it's just out of a 12 ounce glass, and you're just drinking it in one sitting, I think it should be cold but not ice cold.
Yeah.
You want the maximum flavor, at least I do. But if you
Okay.
got a 40, you're going to drink it ice cold to start with. If not, it can, like I said, it's going to go into
That's
dip
rough.
that thing.
Like I said, for me, any kind of lager doesn't matter whether it's like a light lager, a regular lager, ice lager, high gravity lager, or a malt liquor. If it gets above 40 degrees, it's going to be disgusting.
It may not be disgusting, but it may not present the optimum pleasure factor. Hey,
And
John, wait, hold on now, because we're this is it. We've gone one. I want to stop this video. John and Neil, you got anything left to say?
Well, I got on too late to really, you know, we're running out of time here. I'm glad I got to join you guys, and you know, hopefully I won't have these technical issues next week. Just goes to show you, don't go spend a lot of money on technology when you've got something that already works.
Right, and you got a beautiful Michelob glass there, I might add. And I have a Miller,
Yeah, well,
I have a Miller Light glass. See,
Got Sam Adams.
Yeah, I don't
cold
have one of
snap
those.
glass.
nice. Everybody's got these.
Yeah, you gotta love a schooner. They're
William, my glass has Stan Makita on it.
Stan Makita. Oh, man. The Blackhawks have the best looking jersey in professional sports.
Blackhawks.
That's the best looking jersey in sport.
Yeah,
Let's
dude.
shut this off because we can see things are going south quick.
Straight down.